Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. I'm your host, Mari Riesberg. Over the past several years, I've combined my degrees in acting and somatic psychology to share my sustaining creativity techniques with performers. And now I've decided to share it with a bigger audience that includes you. I believe we are all creative, and this podcast is all about that. I'll be interviewing people from all backgrounds, ages, and creativity experiences to share just how creative we all are. Today, I'll be chatting with Ina Segal, bestselling author and intuitive healer. Please enjoy Ina Segal. Welcome to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. Today, I'm chatting with Ina Segal, bestselling author and intuitive healer. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much for having me.
I'm super excited to chat with you about creativity and to see how creativity shows up in your life and all of the ways it enhances or informs things that you do. But before we get there, would you mind sharing a little bit more about who you are and what it is you do?
Thank you. So for me, I had a really profound experience in my very early 20s where I was able to heal myself from debilitating back pain, digestive issues, anxiety, psoriasis. And I learned that I could tune into my body through this experience, and that the body actually had a language. It wasn't like English or but it was a language, and that contained everything from symbolic meaning, metaphoric meaning, to what most of us experience, which is pain and different sensations, or pleasure, or feeling good, or feeling bad. And so I started actually, funny enough, having studied professional writing and editing and linguistics, it made sense to me, or I guess that's how my mind took that in, that our bodies have this language, and that by communicating and understanding this language, we can heal ourselves, we can transform, almost pretty much everything that life presents to us, from feeling like we're victims of whatever is happening to feeling like we can thrive and work with our challenges, no matter how difficult they can be, and transform. And so then I essentially wrote books. In particular, I wrote a book called The Secret Language of Your Body, which then was translated, I think it's 27, could be 28 languages by now, but wow. It's done extremely well, and it's sold over 1 million copies. And so I started teaching people more and more about how they can do that themselves. How they can work within their own inner self to express this language.
That's amazing. And to have your own journey and then to see how far it's come from that point. I can only imagine the, trust and creativity that goes into using your body and understanding its language and trusting its language. I wonder if you could talk a little bit about that journey and what that experience is of learning how to trust the language of your body.
Well, yeah, I think that there is, in terms of trusting it, I think step one is when we start to connect to it. And for me, the creative aspect of it began, I'm going to say, because when I started doing acting classes, which was probably when I was maybe more professional classes, I'm going to say it was maybe when I was 16. And I started to become aware that, you can get into a character, or you can get into a particular state by connecting to your body, and that the trusting element was working together. So, how do we work together with with our inner self to create a character was very fascinating to me. And how do we get into character, and how when we're in a particular character, we can feel completely and totally different. And so when I started doing healing work, I would always connect it in a way to what I've learned in acting from that creative perspective of, let's say we're working on a particular memory, and that memory to me would then make sense to connect it to an archetype. And an archetype is how the body speaks. It's often it's one of the creative ways that the body shows us things when we start to connect with it, and we essentially really go within and we start asking questions. And so I realized that when I was doing acting, we would go, okay, what archetype potentially is this character connected to, and maybe or has or leads. So maybe the character has the queen archetype or the king archetype or the princess or the child or whatever it is. And I realized that in terms of trusting oneself and your intuition, you actually needed to learn what is the voice of the intuition that is separated to the voice of these aspects of yourself. And so, for instance, we all have had childhood. So, but during childhood, some of us became very stunted or stuck because we had family members, or we went to school. Like I was bullied at school. And so because we were hurt or bullied in some way, we stopped growing in that way. And so the language of the body then comes back and says, well, look, you've had a trauma, you had something that happened to you. By connecting within and exploring, you might realize, well, actually, when I was 5 years old, somebody said or did something. Well, speaking of creativity, I had a client. I'm going to give an example. I had a client, and she had really bad knee pain. And as we were exploring and trying to understand where did it begin, it became clear for us that when she was maybe 5 or 6 years old, she did a painting, and she was so, so proud of this painting. And when she showed it to her father was just too busy. And it wasn't even a trauma like we would think, but he was too busy. He wasn't really interested. He might have said something that didn't relate, that was hurtful without thinking. And she shut down her creativity. And it was like she could not move forward, even though her body was trying. So it was like there was this conflict, and the knees represent moving forward. It's flexibility, it's taking action steps. So then it was something like, I can't remember, 30 or 40 years, she didn't really do anything about it.
Yeah.
But that feeling of I need to be creative, I need to be creative, I need to I need to do something that's really creative kept coming to her. And then finally she started doing something. And this is when the knee pain actually happened. She didn't have knee pain before that. And she came to me and she said, well, I don't understand, because how is this related? And it's almost like in relation to your creativity, you could not move forward, which is what this part of the body represents. And so when you chose to, it was almost like you had, let's say, 40 years of having a break on. And the body is sensitive, and it takes everything in, and it goes, okay, well now, imagine having your foot on the brake for that many years, and now you're actually taking steps forward. There's going to be some pain involved. And it was very interesting, because once we identified all this and let it go, so she obviously, most people go, well, I don't remember this, because it's in, and that's that language of the body that says whether you remember or not consciously is irrelevant, because I remember. And so, as we acknowledged and work through it and let go of the hurt and the
Mm,
pain that the child in her felt, even though the adult goes, well, that's ridiculous. How is this even relevant? That archetype, that aspect of the child was stuck in,
mm,
I'm not good enough, I'm rejected, I'm not lovable.
mhm,
And so when we worked with that child and changed it, then the knee pain left and she was able to really embrace her creativity much more.
mm.
So I feel like trust develops when you connect and you start to see that your state changes, or
Yeah.
the pain that one of the things that people often experience when I'm teaching them is that wherever they have pain, it's as they start to explore things, the pain will move through the
Hmm.
body, which to me is much more of a emotional expression of
Yeah.
whatever is going on for them that is stuck.
That makes so much sense. And wow, that's what an incredible experience to be able to track that whole journey for one of your clients. I'm curious, when you think of creative or creativity, what does it mean to you to be creative?
I think for me, it's all about allowing new ideas, new perspectives, almost new colors to
Hmm.
come into my mind. So I love the idea of where, let's say, I would be teaching a workshop, and then all of a sudden, I've had a new perspective on how to help somebody to understand something, and that could be
Hmm.
through. I know when I used to travel a lot, so I used to teach in Europe a lot, and I would at times, when I was especially in France, I felt like people had a lot of trust in what I was doing. So at different times, I would listen to what they were saying and I would observe, and then I'd go, okay, well, I'm going to get this person up and this person up, and you're actually going to move and dance around the room in relation to what you're feeling together. And we're going to watch this. And so it'd be like this inspiration. So I guess
Hmm.
creativity to me is very connected to inspiration and helping both myself to go, what else is possible, and I think it's also for me connected to what do I love, like what do I love to do and what do other people love to do, and how do we work with this and embrace it. And so it's so much about new ideas. And if I can give one more example, when my daughter was around 12, she came to me and she said, Mom, I'm not like you. I don't like talking about my feelings and and what's going on for me. And I said, that's fine, but I know that you love to dance, and
Hmm.
I know that you love to paint and draw. So let's do that, and you express and show me your emotions
Hmm.
through those mediums. And it was really quite powerful because we created a bond then where we would have our time together, and we would literally, I would just sit there and witness her moving and dancing and expressing herself, and then she would do the same to me, where
Hmm.
I would move for her. And so it created such a beautiful spiritual bond. And so I think creativity essentially contains everything: spirituality, colors, new ideas, inspiration.
That's amazing. And I agree. I think it absolutely holds all of those pieces. And I love that story about your daughter and sharing her emotions through movement and art and all of these pieces. Because, yeah, sometimes we don't have the words, but our body has something
Mm.
to express. And so being able to, what a gift to be able to support her in that and create that bond that the two of you have. E- Having worked with as many clients and individuals and teaching and in many different countries, I'm curious if you notice differences in people's willingness to follow creative urges or take creative risks based on where they live. Like people in France, you said trust. They were there to
Mhm.
trust in their body and express that. But what do you notice kind of in other places when it comes to creativity?
Such an interesting question. I love that. It is. I actually have noticed that it was extremely, extremely different in
Mm.
different countries. And what was so fascinating for me was that I was born in Eastern Europe, and obviously those were the countries that were very, very, very suppressed.
Hmm.
And I remember at one point I was teaching in Slovakia, and then I went to Prague. And Prague is one of the most stunningly beautiful places
Mm.
you've ever seen. And I knew some people there, and I was saying to them, I was asking them, how does that work? Because it was so, so, so suppressed.
Hmm.
And they were saying that the only way they could survive was to
Mm.
be extremely creative.
Wow.
And it was very interesting for me because again, I was born in Belarus, and my mom actually ended up working in an institute for kind of creative arts
Mm.
and act, and she was saying that culturally there it was like it was just such a huge part of your life to
Hmm.
go to theater shows, to go to ballet, to go to musicals, to go to just creative life was something that one wasn't very expensive, and two,
Hmm.
something that concerts just that you were always having access to.
Hmm.
And I remember even when I was really little, my mom took me to so many shows, so many plays,
Hmm.
and it really allowed my imagination, because that's what it is as well, right? It allowed
Hmm.
my imagination to really expand, where I would yeah, I would write poetry when I was really little. I'd have my grandfather, like he would say stories and poems and
Hmm.
little, kind of sayings. And it felt like the creative life was so developed there. And then I live in Australia. And in Australia, it is very underdeveloped,
Hmm.
extremely, and so when people say things about culture, for instance, they usually here they talk about football and beer,
Hmm.
and like art, going to an art gallery, all of that is so underdeveloped in a place like Australia compared to the times where I've gone to Europe anywhere,
Hmm.
and you can feel it, you can see it in architecture as well. And I
Hmm.
feel like I just went, my partner is English, and so we, recently went to England.
Hmm.
And as we were walking around, I just kept saying to him, just looking at the buildings in itself makes me feel inspired and allows this
Hmm.
new creative, I guess, aliveness to come
Hmm.
through, that I was saying to him, I have to work much harder at it in Australia, because as much as I love the country and there's so much good in it, it just doesn't have a very developed,
Hmm.
cultural, experience like that. And you don't have the beautiful buildings, you don't have that stimulation that you have in particular in the European countries. I've been
Hmm.
to Africa, I've been to Middle East. Again, you see this, kind of architectural buildings, and you go, oh my God, there must have been like what
Hmm.
inspired people to
Hmm.
create something like this, where I think Western countries are much more utility focused
Hmm.
as opposed to beauty
Hmm.
focused. And so I think that it's, it's harder for us to have that same level of creative juices going, because I'm just going to say, I have we have a TV channel which has mainly international type of
Hmm.
shows. And I mainly watch that. And so when I do the subtitles, obviously, so it's Italian or it's French or something,
Mhm.
and they're very loud. And my partner comes in, he's like, oh my God, why are they shouting? Why are they so loud? You like this? And I'm like, yeah, because I feel like they fully express what it is that they need to express. They don't
Mhm.
hide it.
Mhm.
And then they allow something new to come from this as opposed to
Mhm.
hiding and pushing away. And that's what I found in terms of the body with people,
Yeah.
in different countries. In some countries, people just don't speak. And so they have a lot of thyroid and throat issues because they're hiding everything. Or
Mm.
they have reproductive issues, which is another area known for creativity. So
Yeah.
um, there's a definite impact that I've seen in terms of people's ability to express themselves and be more creative in different countries, without a doubt.
Wow. That I've always wondered, and I've seen it in friends that I have who are from other countries, but to go and experience it in the ways that you have, it, I'm always so curious about it. So thank you for just sharing your experience. For people who may be struggling to tap into their creative voice or find their own creativity, how would you encourage them to take that first step towards a creative expression?
I think it always has to come back to the heart,
Hmm.
to asking questions and to connecting to the heart. And so to me, it can be as simple as placing your hands on your heart and breathing into that area and actually asking questions in terms of, if my heart could find something to sing about, what would it
Hmm.
be? And at times it could be coming back to their childhood and actually saying, what, when I was a child, what is it that I did love to do? And what if I allow myself to, even if as an adult I don't want to do it, I mean, it could be just as simple as going on a swing
Hmm.
and just
Hmm.
allowing something new and different to happen. And the other thing that I think that really awakens your creativity is travel. I really think that as you travel and you start asking questions, like my daughter and I went to Japan last year and we went to Korea. And I think that every time you go somewhere and it opens up your perspective because you get to talk about it. And I went to China on the way to England last year, and it was really interesting for me because I was like, oh, I feel a bit uncomfortable. So
Hmm.
if I'm uncomfortable because my partner had to stay back in England and I continued on my way home to Australia. And so I had to go to China by myself for several days. And I was like, hey, I need to make some friends. And I think that part of creativity is actually opening yourself up to new ideas, new
Hmm.
possibilities.
Hmm.
And that includes going out there and talking to people. It includes reading. I think
Hmm.
reading books allows
Hmm.
you to engage your imagination.
Hmm.
Like, I thought it was really interesting. My mom, she's just turned 69 and she stopped working, and I thought, hey, I wonder what she's going to find, like what is she going to do that's
Hmm.
creative. And she started cooking a lot more, but
Hmm.
she's also started um making, like, she buys these pictures, and then she sits there and she I don't even know what it's called, but it's like she puts little beads and things on
Oh,
them.
like the diamond
And
painting.
yeah,
Yeah.
like that, exactly. And
Hmm.
she just loves it. She loves doing it, and she
Hmm.
feels like this is how she's expressing her creativity, between
Hmm.
trying cooking more things and then just for herself, and what she's enjoying to do is sitting there and making something come alive. And so I just think that essentially, if you want to find it, you can, even going um going down different streets and walking, or driving down different streets than what you used to. And actually, I really think so much about it is also giving yourself permission to talk to people, because then that you wouldn't necessarily speak to, because then you might go, oh my God, wow, why do they think so differently? And does that awaken something inside of me? I think that's a really good question.
Those are great suggestions. And I love hearing that your mother at 69 is cooking more and engaging different creative expressions and opportunities. And we're never too young to start something new. And so I love it. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I have one last question. What does it feel like in your body to be creative?
I feel like when I'm creative, I'm really connected to the feminine part of me in particular, because I guess, I see it as the colorful, the vibrant, the creative part. I didn't talk about creativity in shopping, and how, buying something that like a dress, or, something that, for men, like my partner, he loves to be very practical. So he likes to fix things. And so he gets really excited. I can see it every time the post office, the post comes and it's something, creative. It's like it lights you up. And I think it allows you to love life. I think creativity is loving life, really. And it is seeing life from new lenses, new perspectives, and essentially it awakens life force to me. So to be creative is to have vibrancy, is to have energy, is to have, a desire and excitement, I feel, in your body, and maybe even more of an expansion in terms of what's possible. And I also think that when you're really creative, you start to breathe in a different way. You start to connect, listen to your body, honor yourself in a completely different way.
I love that. Yes, creativity is loving life. That's a fantastic way to look at it and view it. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. If people want to learn more about the work you do, the things you have out in the world, how could they go about doing that?
They can go to my website, which is innersegal.com. So just INNASEGAL.com. And what I really, in terms of their own creative discovery, I encourage people to, in particular, look at some of my masterclasses, which are, for now, it might be for a limited time, free, and where a person can actually start to reconnect with their own body and start to explore and start to, cleanse and understand and transform what doesn't work, so that they can be more creative. So just you'll see the masterclass pages. There's so many different options for masterclasses, but give yourself 3 to 4 hours of time, because you're going on a journey, and have a journal and, answer the questions that I'm asking. And the other thing I want to say to people is that I've also created a lot of, besides my books, which there's 3 that I've written, writing the 4th one at the moment. I also have a lot of card decks, and these cards are also there essentially to reclaim your creativity. And in particular, I have a card deck called Heart Healing Oracles, which I encourage people to look at if you have any challenge with that creative aspect, because in those cards, I actually talk about all the different parts of our heart that has that creative aspect, where, there is the heart that is an adventurous heart that maybe we pushed away, and we need to reclaim it, and there is the creative heart, and there is the sensual heart, and there is the loving heart, and there is the transformational heart, and there is the, grieving heart that needs to be met so that it can heal and transform. So I think that's just a really beautiful way to regain all the kind of pieces of your heart through exploring and working with the processes from that card deck. But also I encourage people to write love letters to their hearts so that they can strengthen their heart and find out more creativity that they call an inspiration.
I
and
love
guidance.
that. Yes, absolutely. What wonderful things. Well, I will put links in show notes so people have very easy access to all of this information. And thank you so much for taking the time to chat with me. I've soaked all of this up, and it's been such a treat.
Thank you so much.
Thanks for listening to the Sustaining Creativity Podcast. We'd love to keep in touch, so follow us on Facebook and Instagram. We are at Sustaining Creativity. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. Tag your friends and family so they can listen too. We love to hear from you, so leave your reviews, comments, and questions. Check out our website, sustainingcreativity.com, for upcoming offerings and creativity coaching. Tune in Tuesdays for our next episode. And remember, with creativity, anything's possible.